Welcome back to the Criticizer of Conlangs with your host James Pigeon, and today the episode is on Blissymbolics. But first, this channel recently turned 7 years old, meaning we lasted longer than World War I, Richard Nixon's presidency, Conlang critic, the Clone Wars, and several species of short-lived mammals. Blissymbolics is an engineered pictorial language created by controversial German-Jewish chemical engineer Charles K. Bliss in 1941. The language has no spoken form. It only exists as a vast network of interacting symbols. So if you want something to listen to in the background, boy, you did pick a bad episode. Now, for context, the interesting life of her creator. Born Karl Blitz in 1897, Bliss grew up in the cosmopolitan city of Czernowitz in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, where, he would later reflect, about 6 languages were spoken by residents of the town, which he called stupid. An origin similar to the inventor of Esperanto, but with a much different result. A veteran of the First World War, he would eventually become a chemical engineer, and was inspired by the IUPAC symbols that served as a common visual language. Unfortunately for him, he lived in Germany, and the Nazis did not like Jews, so he was sent to Dachau and later Buchenwald in 1938, but was released in 1939, being exiled to England. However, the war stopped his travel plans, and he and his wife were separated, both ending up, after a very protracted story, in Shanghai. In China, he learned about the Chinese logography, another inspiration for what he would eventually create. In 1941, at age 44, he published his Blissymbolics, which were adopted by a Canadian children's hospital to help children who couldn't speak communicate. However, Bliss became horrified when he found out that they were trying to use the symbols as a pathway to learning English. From his perspective, the written word was more than enough. Eventually, he sued the children's hospital and used the settlement money paid out by a charity to publish his proprietary Blissymbolics manual. From Blissymbolics.org, quote, Blissymbolics is a semantic graphical language that is currently composed of more than 5,000 authorized symbols, Bliss characters, and Bliss words. It is a generative language that allows its users to create new Bliss words as needed. It is used by individuals with severe speech and physical impairments around the world, but also by others for language learning and support, or just for the fascination and joy of this unique language representation. From this, and some other material on the website, the goals of Blissymbolics, the modern organization at least, can be ascertained. To facilitate communication as effectively as a traditional spoken language, to have a system well designed for the creation of new symbols and compounds, and to be easy to learn and pick up. Also to mention, there's some tone that it's kind of implied that Bliss meant it as a bit of an international language, but the current organization that maintains Blissymbolics has seemed to have dropped this goal, so this will be ranked as an engineered language, not an international language. So, the phonology. So, the grammar. Blissymbolic pronouns are very simple, as you can see in the chart, just these lines with the number showing the person and the plural indicator to pluralize. Blissymbolics has a pretty complex morphology, actually, modifying its symbols for different grammatical expressions. The main tenses shown here are marked with diacritics that go above the verb symbol. A neat system. But yes, Blissymbolics has nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, and they are marked with certain indicative symbols, as you can see here. In my opinion, the grammar of Blissymbolics is pretty good. It's complicated enough to allow for the expression of pretty complex ideas, but simple enough to be easy to pick up quickly, at least for the average Indo-European enjoyer. However, it's in general kind of hard to find details on Blissymbolics, and Bliss's work has been criticized for this. As said by Luis Rodrigo in a Reddit comment on the subject, quote, I've been slowly ingesting the original semantography material over the last 5 years. Of particular use for you, I will direct you to the 2 primary sources for Bliss. The Bliss symbol correspondence course in the original book. I have to apologize in advance. You have to extract the content of Mr. Bliss's work with the same way you would extract a recipe from our modern recipe websites. Even if you align with his worldview, he is repetitive and appeals to emotion, even when criticizing others that do. He himself admits halfway through his textbook that he has been using slogans and manipulating the reader in the same way a car salesman does, in order to sell them the ideas of Bliss symbols. I found it disheartening, since he spent the first 300 pages of his book denouncing manipulative use of language, at one point relating it to mankind's original sin. It takes a certain level of masochism to endure Mr. Bliss's unreliable narration. Hopefully it doesn't take you years to go through it, as it has me. Now for vocabulary. Blissymbolics is composed of many symbols representing basic concepts. These can be compounded and combined with other symbols to make more complex topics. However, it seems a bit inconsistent as to whether they should be overlaid or next to each other, as this is done varyingly. The symbols aren't that intuitive, but they're decently easy to remember. However, some of the meanings are a lot more prescribed than others. Like, could a person really see the compound water horse and know for sure that it meant hippopotamus? It would probably end up with having to memorize most words, like a spoken language. The symbols themselves look pretty good and aren't that hard to write, so, I think, that was good. Now for the written sample, a short story I wrote. Below the Blissymbolics, you can see a literal translation representing the different compound symbols. Overall, Blissymbolics achieves its unique concept very well. The fact that it's not spoken would make for a very good international language because there's no phonology to worry about, a whole element completely gone without having to worry about it. Keep in mind that this is a massive double-edged sword I'm about to address. As well, the grammar isn't cheap, it's developed enough to express a wide range of ideals without becoming completely unwieldy, and the fact that neologisms can be easily invented with the Inuit-pilled compound system is very cool. However, not being spoken obviously presents immense negatives. For use in real life, it would be hard to have a conversation with another speaker, writer, face to face. And if this was adopted internationally, blind people would just be like fried, right? Also, Bliss symbols is very annoying to type, and keyboards would probably have to adopt some Pinion-esque system, which would defeat the point, kind of, because, what are you basing the Pinion off of? I don't know. Yeah, this is kind of, you don't think about it, but that's pretty bad. If there are any Blissymbolic defenders in the comments, let me know what your solution to keyboards would be, because hard to see a way around that. As well, the compound words are nice, but, most would still have to be memorized, like in any language. Protection cloth meaning clothing, you can see it, but not everyone would get the same idea, and more words would just be codified. In the end, Blissymbolics is still a better language for communication than Simplese. And even though Simplese is more appealing to me personally, and I have a bigger emotional connection to it, Blissymbolics met its goals better, making it the best Ngelang reviewed so far. Leave any requests in the comments below, and stay tuned for next week, when the episode will be on Lingcos.